Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. I am Chris, joined by my brothers Adam and Eric from Isolation to talk
Hello.
more about video games. We are back in the room to continue our discussion on our individual favorite games of all time, or at least at time of recording, as I'm sure in the future, well, hopefully, future games will come out that possibly change our minds, but then again, it's hard to beat your first time sometimes. So in the previous two episodes, we spoke about my favorite game of all time and then Adam's favorite game of all time. So that brings us to Eric to close this discussion and to find out what is his favorite game.
Finally, we can stop talking about favorite stuff. Stop getting asked this really different question.
The rest of the series will still be favorite stuff because we like to. Well, I like to. I don't know if you guys like to, but I put the questions to you, so tough shit. But yeah, I like positivity. I like talking about the positives of gaming, and to reminisce on our favorite gaming experiences, as opposed to what's a game that you played once. As opposed to what's your favorite game? Those are very different questions that can have very different conversation topics. So, Eric, at time of recording, because I know you find this question particularly difficult.
I do
every time. What is your favorite game of all time?
Because obviously I was thinking about it, so I decided to go for like a really niche game, like it's really like not known, and like I think the company's real small as well. So like. Not a lot of people played this game, and I think even fewer like it. So I was like, don't know if you've heard of it. It's like Skyrim by like some small company called Bethesda. Yeah, that's the game I went for.
That was actually, you gave it Game of the Decade as well.
Yeah, why not? Like it existed.
Man, you sound like you love it.
Great, good crack, like
this is hilarious because like. In some of our earlier episodes, like the game I think we talked about the most is Skyrim.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Another 3-hour episode.
Let's go again. Let's do it again. So we're back in Skyrim, which we've all talked about many times before, and I think I've said previously that it's my favorite open world game. It's my favorite like world to actually explore in game anywhere. But before we get really into it and to talk about the stuff that we haven't talked about before in this game, Eric, because I know this was probably a more difficult question for you to answer than it is for me and Adam.
Yeah, because I don't play games.
Well, actually, I was going to... So, of the three of us, whether people know it or not, Eric has actually played the most amount of games and has probably completed the most amount of games. I don't mean in terms of platinuming. I just mean in terms of actually like finishing it to the end. Even if he's not enjoying it, he tends to just finish the game anyway. So, I'm just curious, were there any other contenders that you were like balancing in your mind? Was it like down a couple of games?
That would be a few others.
Do you want to name them?
Not particularly, because now I don't know what they are. Well, I know Witcher 3 was one. Witcher 3 would have been one, and there would have been like probably Uncharted games would have been ones as well. Like new God of War was class. So far, most of the games I'm naming are just sword games. It's hack and slash.
Yeah.
Nothing better than just cutting some people up and ripping them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I like a nice story myself, but
no,
I enjoy a cup of tea and a nice long.
I like working hard for a homestead and having some sweet rolls by the fire.
Okay, yeah. Sure, whatever you said, man. So
that's a Skyrim reference. Come on.
I know it is. Actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So before we dive into any particular topics, I suppose, right. This one, it doesn't really work the same way as the last two, in that we are going to talk about spoilers for this game, but I feel at no point do we need to give a spoiler warning, because this game could play very differently for different people. Like there isn't like a linear path as such. Like obviously the main quest is linear, but you can play this game and never finish the main quest and still get everything out of this game you want to get out of it. Or you can just play other side quests, or you could do no quests and just get the full experience. So I feel like it's not like, oh, and now let's get to that talking point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I remember when it first got released and we were all playing it, we all cleared it. And I remember talking to people in school about it. And I was like, oh, what do you think of the story? Story's class. And they were like, oh, I haven't played it yet. Like they never touched the story. The minute they left Helgen, the start of which is the start of the game, they just went and did all the side quests and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So there's an element of that. So for that reason, there's not going to be a specific point where we say now we're getting into spoilers. We are just generally going to talk about this game, and we are allowed to talk about any parts of it. So it's a spoiler-filled discussion all throughout. But we might mention stuff that people have never seen before, and we might not mention stuff that people have seen that, like, I know, like last time we talked about this, I think Adam, you mentioned something that I'd never seen before. So it just goes to show, like, you can play this game like 100 times and you can get totally different experiences out of it. So for that reason, it's a spoiler talk all throughout. So Eric,
yes,
what makes this your favorite game?
So fuck, I'm trying to think now. You can kind of just do anything in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like let's say, I think I was talking about this before, which is not on the podcast, but I was saying it before. Like, you know, let's say I was in the mood for playing Tomb Raider, right? But I didn't have Tomb Raider. Now I do have Tomb Raider, but let's say I didn't. All right.
I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
Well, the front also fall off.
Let's say you don't have Tomb Raider. Yeah.
You can just go Tomb Raiding in it. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to go play The Witcher, like monster hunting, but you don't have it, you can do that. You can go monster hunting.
Yeah.
Kill dragons. How fucking epic is that? Kill dragons.
Yeah.
I suppose the beauty of Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls in general is that it is truly an RPG in the Dungeons and Dragons sense of it. It's not like the likes of The Witcher, which is still an RPG, but you're taking on a role of a character that's kind of predetermined for you, or the JRPG, which is about more the tactics of an RPG.
Yeah.
But you're still taking on roles that are predetermined for you. The Elder Scrolls, you absolutely define your character, and here's a world that we've set up, and there's some rules set up in that world. It's like Bethesda are the DMs, but you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And
it's well done. Thank you. It's very much it is actually very much like playing Dungeons and Dragons, but if you don't have a group of buddies to play with, just put on this game and it'll take you on the adventure and give you all the experiences that you could possibly want, and all the dungeons and monsters and lore, and there's so much in this game. And we've talked before about the fact that we all love the rich lore and everything it has, but I suppose let's talk about some of the stuff that we haven't actually deep dived into before in this game, which is first and foremost actually the main quest. We actually never talked about it. I don't think we might have briefly mentioned something of it, but we actually never talked what do we actually think of the main quest. And I'm gonna start with you, Eric.
Well, it's really. I have lack of words for it. It's really great. It's really, really great. Like from the opening, like.
This should be the episode. The title of this episode. It's really great. Skyrim. It's my favorite game. It's really something. You know, it's really great. May I? It's like that. Ask you why it's great.
It gives you that, like, when it opens, it gives you that same feeling that Final Fantasy VII gives you. You know, it's straight into the action. It's straight into the setting up the story. Yeah. You know, that you're going to the macro reactor. You're blown up. With this, you got the Imperials going to execute these Stormcloak rebels, and then the dragon, Alduin comes, the dragon, and just burns the place to the ground.
Yeah.
Like, that really sets up the world you're now entering and the story you're entering. And then just the lore that they delve into surrounding the dragons and the Dragonborn.
Well, I think you're right there actually. Like within 10 minutes, you not only get an idea of the political landscape of Skyrim.
Yeah.
Like they set up both the political tension and this sort of big crisis that the world is now facing, all in 10 minutes, as well as creating your character. And I felt that the character creation actually, which is like the first bit of gameplay you get to do beyond just moving your head, was a real step up from Oblivion. I felt the character creation in this game was really good.
Step up in terms of like, you know, you can create a character that looks somewhat anatomically correct.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was way more freedom in Oblivion. You actually literally got to sculpt the person, but if you're not a good sculptor, you're always going to end up with something that looks, like I said
weird.
before, like a baby.
See, I suppose for me, removing that kind of option, like having a quicker character creation.
I prefer Skyrim's. I prefer this like kind of
you jump into the action
almost.
then quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're always going to get something that kind of looks well. Like there's still a lot of freedom to it. It's obviously not as much freedom, but I think like something like the Argonians in Oblivion, I never wanted to play them because they always just looked terrible. And I know like some people might think, well, it's a first person game. When are you actually going to look at your character? Well, actually, I go into third person quite a lot. So
yeah, me too.
I do want to see my character, and I want to make sure to look. I'm playing as an Argonian in my current run through, and he looks badass. I made him look like a dragon. You know, I wanted to go down as if
Dragonborn.
he is actually a descendant, perhaps, of dragons.
Yeah. Cool.
But like that's another point I would have actually made. You know, like with Oblivion, you can put so much effort into sculpting your character. Skyrim, you can't. That was one reason why people kind of preferred Oblivion, was the amount of freedom it gave. But because it's first person, why does it matter how much sculpting effort you put into it? Yeah, if you're going to be playing majority of it in first person, why does it matter? And
then as well, even if you go into third person, like more often than not, you're wearing like a helmet or something.
Yeah, and you're looking at their back.
You know what I mean? Like, because like it brings up your defense. Obviously, like there's those strategic elements to playing a game. So like how well your cheekbones look really doesn't really play into how great your character is. Like it's not really doesn't really do much for it. You mentioned Alduin, which is the main threat, the main baddie of the game. What do we make of Alduin?
I think it's amazing that, you know, I can't really think of another game where the antagonist of the story is not
a humanoid being.
Yeah, it's something like generally the antagonist is always like the polar opposite to you, kind of a thing. Yep. You know, like it's very similar to you. You can somewhat relate to them then that way. This is a beast, essentially. It's a big monster. I remember the promo material for it, and I was like, I'm not really sure, like if this entices me, that fact that the villain is a dragon. But then as you play it, and you learn about the dragons and there's like the power of their voice and all that kind of stuff, he's like a very scary creature, and what he can bring is, you know, it's Smaug essentially.
But
like
way
Smaug
scarier. He's way scarier than Smaug.
I think they just pulled him off like really well. So not only is like the lore there that's cool, and it works really well with this sort of Nordic backdrop to do dragons. And I suppose like previous to this game, I would have considered dragons to be like
mindless beasts,
wild beasts. Yeah, like I never would have considered them characters, which is very naive. Like you probably shouldn't write off any possibilities in the realm of fantasy. Like you shouldn't go.
Also, I think most of the time,
but
whenever a dragon does show up in old mythologies, they actually always were a character.
Yeah,
which is really weird. Like most people, would nowadays be like, "Oh, dragon's a beast," but actually, all dragons in every mythology was always a very wise, cunning character.
And dragons, I suppose there was a time where the idea of a talking dragon is kind of like, because you know, I always think of something like Dragonheart, which actually was done all right. Like that was actually done okay, but I can't imagine that dragon being a vicious monster. You know, he's actually quite nice. And then there's
kind and gentle,
Pete's
yeah.
dragon, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I never thought like a talking dragon would work, and I think that's if it wasn't for Skyrim and showing that if you build the culture and lore around them for why they can speak and really sell that point, I don't think Smaug in The Hobbit would have worked in the film version. Like,
No,
you know, I think they, even in the behind the scenes, they were thinking that they were going to, the whole time they were going to do speech as more of a psychic connection. They weren't going to actually do
the
talking.
Movement. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, if it wasn't for Skyrim, we probably wouldn't have talking dragons in modern media.
No.
Yeah. No, probably not. And I think as well, he's such a cool design, which, like, it feels like with dragons, you're somewhat limited in that it kind of has to look a certain way for you to recognize that it's definitely a dragon, and yet Alduin still has a very he looks like your typical dragon. Like, he looks absolutely like, if you were to describe a dragon, that's Alduin, but he also has a very distinct,
thing about them.
unique look to him. In that, like, the horns on his head give him this Satan
crown shape as well. Yeah, Satan,
as well, actually,
Satan
like,
and crown,
well,
like, because he's king of the dragons.
You kind of know he's a big deal the minute you see him. And actually, we got a very good close-up look at him because, Eric, remember you got the collector's edition for your birthday, right?
Yeah, I fucking did.
And not only did it come with a very detailed art book of all the creatures and monsters, but it came with a fucking awesome statue of Alduin, right?
On a dragon wall, so you could actually see the dragon language that's created for this as well.
That's the only thing, though. It's like, although it Skyrim showed that talking dragons can work, it also kind of warped our I suppose interpretation of what a dragon is. And dragons now are pretty much any form of flying reptile, whereas dragons have always had 4 legs.
Yeah.
And in Skyrim, they've removed the 2 front legs. They went for the kind of wyvern
design.
Kind of design, and we see that again in The Hobbit, for example.
Yes, yeah.
And we also see it in Game of Thrones. They went for the wyvern design.
And Reign of Fire as well.
Yeah.
So they've completely changed what a dragon is in our head. But they just sell it. You can't. You never once kind of go, that's silly.
But, like, if you ask me, that changes for the better. I prefer
like,
the 2-legged, 2-winged
better design, but
than the 4-legged. I think,
but they are a different creature. I don't know if wyverns ever had a. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that, by the way. It's probably another way to say that, but.
Adam the Butcher could be a Skyrim character as well. So
Butcher of Lore.
Butcher of Lore.
I just remove pages from the books you collect. I don't think there was ever a talking wyvern, really, in mythology. It's always been dragons, and that's how you kind of just between the two. But
I didn't know there was much of a difference, actually. I'll tell you the truth. So I'm glad to have that lesson. I thought wyvern was a type of dragon, and that was the end of it, really. That's the way I looked at it.
Kind
like
of
a frost
is,
giant and a fire giant. They're all giants, you know.
That's not. Hold on. That's also kind of incorrect.
Yeah, well, actually, Eric is kind of, I suppose, of the three of us, definitely the expert on Norse mythology. Because he's done a lot of research on it and read books on it and stuff.
When I was playing, I know we're obviously getting off topic now because I'm going to mention God of War briefly, but when we were playing God of War and the stranger comes along, that was a great reveal for me because I was like, I know who that is. Great. Anyway,
it's kind of amazing to me that actually just from a little bit of interaction, you were able to tell who that was. That's actually kind of...
But another thing, I thought that when playing Skyrim, because when you always have to go in the dungeons, and I remember when I first heard there's loads of dungeon crawling in this.
That's right.
I was so angry because I hated Oblivion every time going down the sewers or caves because they were so annoying and they were very difficult. But then I love the dungeon crawling in Skyrim, and I love fighting the Draugr, which I thought were a creature that they made up for Skyrim, but actually, again, are a Norse undead creature.
Yeah. No, the actual... Yeah, and I agree, because I remember... I'm pretty sure when when it was announced that they were talking about Skyrim and there's going to be so many more dungeons. I'm pretty sure I was the one that told you that.
Yes,
and you were like, oh God, no, that's not what I want. I was like, loads more, Eric. There's going to be loads more dungeons. Like, that was everyone's like selling point. Whereas you were like, I hate that.
Yeah.
And then when playing it, I think you're right. The dungeons are awesome.
Dungeons,
really good.
The music, the atmosphere, and then you actually get something good at the end of every dungeon. Like, this again kind of plays towards that Tomb Raider idea where there's a great treasure at the end. So not only do you find this big chest with gold or armor, enchanted things, or jewelry, you also have the dragon wall, usually at the end of a dungeon, that gives you this new dragon power, this new shout. That's just, it makes it worthwhile. But in Oblivion, I don't really remember them having anything worthwhile rather than just testing my patience and my psyche.
But I suppose that level of progression as well is awesome. That like you could do a side quest that has nothing to do with the main quest, but happens to take you into one of these dungeons. But at the same time, you pick up new powers for the main quest as it goes on. I suppose in terms of the actual main plot, then, what do we make of it, or what do you think of it?
I love the main. I love the main quest up until there's a point where I feel like this feels like a side mission, and I think it's actually the when you're trying to find the Elder Scroll, that entire section of the main plot. Like I really hate that, like, because you're kind of going down into like these depths where there's like Falmer, which is cool. Like I like the Falmer, but then you end up in this like really weird like underworld with giant jellyfish and shit.
I thought that was so cool.
Oh, you like that?
I really love that. I love the design aesthetic. I love that. That's another thing actually, like Skyrim. So on the surface has this Nordic backdrop, but then you do a lot of exploring and you find weird shit like that. Or the Dwemer, for example, like there's steampunk robots in this game, or there's like there's some really cool, interesting out there stuff. Or like the Forsworn is another thing where it's like I wasn't expecting that as a design at all. That is awesome. I love all that weird stuff that mixes into it, because I'm kind of like, I mean, obviously do what's right for the story and stay within a certain path, but also don't be afraid to push the boundaries a little bit. I
don't mind the area. I just think that as part of the main quest, I felt it slowed the pacing a bit.
Oh, okay.
I think it did that because it goes on for a very long time. I do know that when you're going through the Dwemer runes, you're like going through there for like, give or take maybe an hour, and then you get down into the caves.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That goes on for about an hour, and then you get to the Black Reach, which is the area where the Elder Scroll is.
I think, to be honest,
you could get lost in that huge area.
I think I just got distracted by how lovely it all looked.
And it's so that Black Reach area as well. It's like, to me, it was always not clear. Like, I couldn't really find a clear way. It's probably my fault as well, just to kind of get through that area.
Right.
You know, it was very kind of like just a big flat plain almost. I mean, there's kind of rocks and stuff and things and small buildings, but ultimately it's just like I can actually see the end. I just need to get from here to there.
Yeah.
And then in your way, it's just like there's giants, there's Falmer, there's
weird saber-tooth type things.
There's all kinds of things just down there, and you're kind of like, this feels weird. This just to me, the Black Reach always felt like when people mod the game and they want to add their own shit in, and they're like, all right, we'll just sprinkle a bit of this and a bit of that, and there you go. There's your objective. Now get to it. It just didn't feel as well constructed as the other missions throughout the entire main quest.
Yeah.
But I think once you get the Elder Scroll, then it gets back into it. Like, that's just the one bit I just feel like it really slows the pace down. Like, if it was a season of like on Netflix or something like that particular episode would be the worst episode.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't ruin the show, but it's a bad episode.
I remember actually when I first did that bit, and I had Lydia, the first side character, the first follower you ever get.
Yeah.
And I had her for most of the game, had her up to that point, and this big dwarven centaurian giant mechanical monster just comes out of nowhere, and he killed her on me. And I was like, because I got like real attached to having her with me, so I like lost my crap. So for me, that was like,
and you can't
that one of those pivotal moments in the story where it's like you're really hitting like lowest point because you lost one of your characters and you're going through this hellhole of a city full of everything trying to kill you.
And you can't revive her.
There's no Phoenix Downs.
If she's dead, she's dead. That's it. You gotta live with it. Yeah.
It's worse when you accidentally kill her.
Oh, I didn't do that, but I did lose her in a similar way to Eric. It wasn't in the same place, obviously, but I can't remember where it was. But I know that when she died, I was also like, because I got used to having a companion who would share stuff with me, take the load off my shoulders, you know. So when she died, it was like, can I bring her back? And even like, I can't remember who the next companion I got was, but it was definitely, I think it possibly was that guy in Whiterun who's like a mercenary that'll offer you his services.
Oh yeah.
You know that guy?
Yeah, there's a few of them around.
Like, yeah, just not as memorable as Lydia, and not as kind of like, Lydia comes to you through the story, and she's very loyal to you, and it's not like I don't think there's like a romantic thing there or anything like that. It's just sort of like because your character as well.
It can be
anything. It can be.
No.
But the way can I not?
You can't marry her?
No. I figured out how you know who you can marry or not, and it all depends on their walk. Not gonna lie, yes. So Lydia and like Delphine and all them, they walk. This is gonna sound real bad, but they walk like men. So because you're a man, you can't marry them, and you can only marry the women who actually have a little bit more feminine.
I thought you could marry whoever you want.
No, you can't. There might be a mod for that.
You should go play Oblivion. There's more freedom. I'm funny joking. She's like, well, okay. I never observed that. That's an observation. See, new shit every time you talk.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I suppose like the way I looked at her was sort of like a loyal. I want to say the word servant. Yeah, like kind of like, you know, in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Sam,
or like Lord of the Rings, yeah, like Sam to Frodo, or even like Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn. They're a trio of like to the end, you know, like like we didn't have a prior relationship to this at all, really, but on this quest, we are like blood brothers, and it's to the end. That's the kind of feeling I got off her. Like, I will take an arrow for you, and I think she did in the knee.
But my first ever playthrough, I lost her, and I think it could have been in the Black Reach actually. And I thought she was dead, and I was going through quite a lot of it then without her. And it was kind of sad then, because, you know, she was with me the whole time, and then all of a sudden she's gone.
Yeah.
And then there's like this fight I'm doing like way later on, and out of nowhere, here comes Lydia, and she joins the fight, and I was like, it was such an epic moment.
Unreal. I hope as well. It was like
I know loads of people did not like her.
Well, she does get in the way.
She gets in the way, but like, you can have any companion that'll get in the way.
In a way, yeah, because she's swappable as well, and because you can have other companions. In a way, she's kind of a game mechanic, and I suppose you will appreciate her if you use that game mechanic. But if you don't want it, it's in your way. That's
but you can tell her to, like, you know,
leave.
Off you go.
Tell her leave.
Like, if you have, for instance, because with the heart, I was playing Skyrim recently, and I went back to my house, like Lakeview, when you have the Heartfire DLC, the house I built, and I went in there, and there was my wife Isolde, and then there was my dwarven mud crab thing with his dwarven armor, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And then there was also this guy called Valdemar or something, which apparently is a house carol, like Lydia was, right? That I got for like helping Solitude or something. I completely forgot about this, and I saw him in the house, and he was there beside Isolde, and I was like, what the hell are you guys doing? What's going on here?
Hey, what are you doing in my house?
Yeah, I do some dungeon crawling, and I come home to this. Get that mud crab out of here.
And then my daughter comes running around the corner, and she has a pet rabbit, and I'm like, I don't remember doing any of this.
Yeah,
you know what? They're absolutely
the guy is like, yeah, I bought her that rabbit. Thanks, Daddy. What the fuck is going on here?
There absolutely needs to be like a Family Guy American Dad kind of a thing of that situation. It's like, you just come home from work, and there's like the mud crab character who's like the Stewie Griffin of the thing, maybe.
Yeah. That'd be great. That's hilarious. And that's the other thing. Like, Skyrim is depending on how you play it, its tone can be like, it like that's why like there isn't like a specific spoiler point, right? Because this game can be just to be really funny, or if you just want to like go, okay, cool, I'm gonna like annoy a lot of people and steal pots and bring them to my house or whatever. Or it can be really serious if you want to really role play. Like the tone of the game is totally dependent on the player, I feel. Do you guys have this is gonna feel like a weird question. Do you have a favorite character in the game?
Dragonborn.
The one you make? I suppose it has to be other than the one you make, because the one you make is purely their attitude and their character is how you imagine it. It's like total role play. But
I really like
character
Stormcloak.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's pretty cool.
I hated him.
You hated him?
I hate doing anything for him.
You disagree with him?
Completely.
You're pro-Empire. Yeah. Pro-Empire. We'll have to.
No, I'm not pro-Empire.
We'll have to get into that debate.
The just the better of two evils kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, okay. The lesser two evils.
I know. I really like him.
Say neutral man.
He was really. He's got a good presence about him. You know.
He's in Winterhold? No.
Winterhold. No, not Winterhold.
That's the magic school.
Yeah, that's the magic school. It is Windhelm.
Windhelm. That's right.
Yes, that's where he is. Actually, that's another thing. The names they have for the locations in that game are just class. They're such good names.
They're really good. But just the overall, we've said it before, but just the overall lore and the world building of the game is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Adam, have you a favorite character? Eric likes Ulfric Stormcloak, and you hate him.
Oh yeah, I said Patronax.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Patronax, yeah, the dragon. He's unreal. He's unreal. He's very much. He reminded me very much of like the dragon from Dragonheart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This wise kind of.
But I hate that there's no choice in that bloody Blades mission.
Yeah, it's very.
Like I've gone really far in that game, and that's probably the only one I have not completed. Like obviously I've done that quest before. I've done that quest before in order to get the platinum, but it's like this is wrong. Everything about this is wrong. I should be able to complete that Blades quest in a way
where Patronax doesn't have to die.
Yeah, like maybe I kill Esbern instead. Why not? I'll cut his head off way before I'd cut off Patronax.
Screw Esbern. Wise old goof.
I think there should be like an option where you could almost create like a peace treaty with them, where the Blades and Patronax.
Well, there should be way more options in that quest, right? That like maybe those are like the three options. Like one being like peace between, maybe the other is eliminate the Blades, and the other is kill Patronax.
Yeah. Then another one is the actual then, because we mentioned it, the war between the Imperials and Stormcloaks. There should be also more options there rather than just join one or the other.
What, join both?
Yeah, join both and have them all
and take them all down at the same time.
Yeah, I tried to join both. Yeah, it can't be done.
Liberate Skyrim from both
sides. I've done both sides a few times. I'm still more of an Imperials man than I am Stormcloaks.
Okay, let's have that talk.
Yeah.
Eric, what about you?
First time I joined the Stormcloaks because I was thinking, like, first of all, the Imperials tried to kill me, and then secondly, they're trying to impose their will on people who don't want it, and maybe they should just leave them alone.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Good little bit of logic there, yeah. Adam, what's your rebuttal?
Okay, I ended up joining the Imperials totally by accident. I didn't realize. I was like, hey, this way. I'm like, all right, and I just ran and didn't realize.
But as soon as I was in and they gave me a flyer, I was all.
I was like, you guys totally make sense.
Yeah, bro. This is cool. You're hanging out with some elves, right?
I just find that the Stormcloaks are, firstly, pray to the wrong gods, and secondly, a bunch of racists.
They only want to get rid of one god.
That's hilarious. We can talk about like the actual politics and religion of a fake world. It's like, they're worshiping the wrong gods, man. Worship our god. There were two things that our mother told us never to talk about in public. They were politics and religion. So without further ado, let's talk politics and religion. And put it out to the world. I'm only joking. I can't remember which one I did first. I've done both, definitely to see how they go.
Yeah, I've done both.
I think I went to do both. I tried to do both only because I was like, I want to see where this goes. Like, I'm not one to like go they're right or they're right from the get go. I need more information. So I went to try to do both. I went to see the Stormcloaks and I got given the quest of killing an ice wraith. And I went, okay, let me see what the Empire have to say to me and see, let's see what the deal is, So I went to talk to them, and their quest was something easier or more enticing to me. So I said, okay. And then I thought, well, since I've been given the option to do both, can I do both? So from memory, I think I did the Empire one first because it was closer. It was easier to access. And I did that one first. And as a result, then the other one got cut off to me. And I went, oh, crap. I didn't know that was like a final decision doing one or the other.
I thought it was the Jagged Crown one was the deciding factor. Because
I don't think so, because I remember. Yeah, because I remember not being able to do the other one then, as a result.
Okay.
It got cut off. Maybe I'm wrong.
Every time I do them, I'm just like, every time I do the Imperial one, I'm like, this feels right. But when I do the Stormcloaks one, I'm like, the only thing I'm going to get out of this is probably the finest house of Skyrim.
Yeah, but man, that's good. That's good. Get a nice houses. Well,
Yeah.
what did the Empire give you?
Well, you also get a house, but it's just not as big as
It's
the
just
one
not the finest house in Skyrim.
But I do prefer Solitude as a location. So
they have a nicer place. I mean, they're like, you go to Windhelm.
It's cold. It's nasty.
Sorry for the Stormcloaks, because it's like, I don't know, guys. When I go to the Empire, it's nice and bright. Like here, it's dark, and you
also have the bards.
Not happy.
College and
Solitude and stuff.
And Windhelm, you got a child performing the Black Sacrament in his
attic. I mean, there's just nothing really that nice about Windhelm when you think about it. I mean, you just step outside your door, you go into the graveyard, and there's like death everywhere.
There's a prostitute that's killed or something.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's kind of a dark place.
It's not a nice place.
Yeah, I'm pro Empire.
Pro Empire.
Convinced me. No, you know what? Yeah. In terms of their actual beliefs, I don't know, because like they're kind of both wrong. Like.
It's not like it's not black and white.
It's not a definite like, do you want to join the good guys or the bad guys?
Which I do like that. I do like that they're both bad and they're both good. Like, so the Stormcloaks just want to defend their culture of Skyrim, but they're a bunch of racists. That's that bad. Then you got the Imperials who are not racist, but they're trying to destroy your culture. So that's pretty bad.
Yeah. And actually, especially when
the Imperials are only like when
you're playing the game, you realize the whole appeal of this game is the culture. So I don't want that gone. Like, that's literally the appeal of this. Well, for me, the appeal of the game is the culture and the world that's in it. So there is an element of, you're like, Empire, get out of here. Come on. This place is awesome. You guys are going to ruin it. You're going to ruin it.
The Jarl of Whiterun is sided with the Empire.
Yeah, he is, and he's a nice dude. So
he's neutral.
As far as I can, he's not neutral. He's absolutely imperial.
He's neutral, but the Imperials offer protection for him to become loyal, because the Stormcloaks are going to forcefully take it. So Stormcloaks use force while the Imperials use diplomacy.
Now you see, look,
screw diplomacy. You know what I mean? Stormcloaks all the way. No, I'm joking. I never actually answered. Yeah, going back, I think Paarthurnax is probably my favorite character within the game as well. Because it sets up very early on that the dragons are the enemies of this game. So to have a dragon, to show that dragons also have, like, they could change allegiance and they're not all, it's not like that's an evil creature. They actually have a mindset and everything. I think was a really awesome, like, the way to show that was by having a dragon that helps you. I thought, and they just do it really, really well. In terms of, because we ended up
the build up to him was great, because the Greybeards just keep mentioning Paarthurnax, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Why is Hermit that lives on the top of the mountain? Why not? Probably looks like Gandalf. You go up there and it's like, oh, there's no one here. Dumph, dragon. It's like, ah,
Yeah, so cool.
hi.
Yeah, that's the thing. They didn't tell you it was a dragon, so you weren't expecting it. As soon as he pops down, every other dragon before that has been your enemy. So it's just a really good reveal that there's a dragon in this dragon-themed game that's actually here to help you and to tell you, give you further information about the dragons, about Alduin, and all that stuff. And I think, as well, the reveal as to why the dragons have come back is amazing. Is absolutely amazing. And when I heard that, it blew my fucking mind.
The game is nearly on par with like a good Final Fantasy story, like with the twists and reveals and everything making sense and everything. Like,
and there's one twist really.
I'd put it just on par with just being a good fucking game. Like,
I'm just saying.
It's not necessarily like any. I don't think Skyrim is like any other game. I think Skyrim is absolutely, and it doesn't need to be. Skyrim is absolutely its own thing, and it's amazing on its own grounds.
Yeah, and the way it can deliver all this story without needing to go into like cutscenes and stuff.
Or anything?
Like you pretty much direct it yourself.
Yeah,
you're choosing the camera angle, and you don't even have to listen to someone talk. You can just walk off and say, yeah, no, listen to you.
See, that's another thing, and that's the player decides the tone of the game. So like they could be giving you really important lore. Like I remember my girlfriend was playing it, and I was really hoping she could like get into it. And every time there was some important lore coming at her, and I was like, wait till you hear this. This is awesome. She was like, skip it, shut up. Oh, a pot, cool. Can I take it? And I'm like, you just missed all the stuff. I don't care. Can I get a horse? I want to ride it off a cliff. What? Or she likes to go splashing in the river. Like for her, Skyrim is like piss around. You know what I mean? Like, whereas other people would take it incredibly seriously and get really lost in the lore. So like you definitely direct the tone of this game depending on how you play it and how you do it, which is a really interesting thing. We dived into side quests. It's really hard to like Skyrim can branch off into so many directions.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to keep it focused because it doesn't have that linearity. But we dived into side quests there, and I suppose I just want to ask, of the side quest storylines, which ones?
Is this like Thieves Guild, like those ones, like
any of the side quests? Any of the side quests?
Can we include the DLCs?
Yeah, I think so. I think at this point, definitely, because it's been so re-released so many times, and every re-release has all the DLCs. That I think at this point, the definitive version of Skyrim includes the DLCs. I think
the Dawnguard one is
phenomenal,
fantastic one, and
phenomenal. It's so good.
The Dragonborn one is really good on an idea of dealing with like the cosmic horror side, but in a fantasy world.
Yeah, the whole Cthulhu kind of vibe thing going on is great.
Go there and it's just like, it's weird tentacle monsters, even though that sounds more like Japanese stuff. But anyway, it's really Cthulhu looking stuff, like, and it's just class.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Just a weird, like, I'm going to talk about Dragonborn for a while. Why not? Because I think have you played it?
I have definitely.
I feel like I have
finished the quest.
I can't remember it. Like a lot of stuff for me, because I kind of take on like multiple quests just as they come to me, and then every now and then activate whichever one I'm closest to or whatever. I kind of forget where Dragonborn begins and where it ends, kind of a thing. You know, like I don't know what part of it is Dragonborn and what part of it is like, I don't know, the main game or Dawnguard even.
Well, actually, just before
I know Dawnguard, actually. Dawnguard is all just vampire stuff.
Vampires, yeah. Dawnguard's great. Before you jump into Dragonborn, Eric, I love how that quest starts. And it starts in a way that a lot of other little side quests can start in. Which
that's the closest.
A mysterious guy attacks you, and then if you kill him and you search his body, which you can not search his body and just miss it, but if you search his body, you'll find a letter, and written on the letter will be find and kill, and then your character's name and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, now I'm after unraveling a conspiracy where someone wants me dead. Why? And if you follow it up, you'll open up this whole, and like lots of quests in Skyrim work this way, where it's like you were literally just going about your day, and some random encounter can happen, or even like a courier would run up and give you a letter. Oh, I have to give you this letter. Do you know what I mean? And it'll suddenly launch you into this new story that you weren't ready for or weren't expecting, and I love that aspect of the game. Like you don't have to go far to find something else to do. But what were you going to say about Dragonborn, Eric?
Oh yeah, the idea of like when you get there, yeah, the conspiracy thing that builds up to, because I remember I was doing it and I was wanting to do it, like I was in the middle of doing a side quest, like give some guy some pickaxe or something he wanted, and I was going up to him and I was trying to give it, I was trying to give him this pickaxe and he kept like mumbling stuff to me. And I was like, what the hell? And then I went up to someone else and he was mumbling the same thing. And I went up to someone else and she was mumbling the same thing. And they were all like possessed, going to this, all like leaving the town, going to the same place. And I was like, what's going on? This is some weird stuff.
Yeah. That's the other thing. The quests all have different kind of, like they all stay within the world or within the genre, but they kind of have their own little genre going on. Like there's kind of like if you do the Thieves Guild, it becomes like a lot of heist stories, you know. Or if you do the Companions, for example, it becomes this awesome Slayers kind of thing. Or the Dark Brotherhood, suddenly you're doing stealth assassin missions, you know. Like they actually have their own tone and feel to them, but they also have their own, like they have a full arc. So they have like a beginning, middle, and end, and they have their own little twists and stuff. They're as good as the main story.
I love that also. Great. Like with them all, by the end of it, you're like the most important person. So you start off as a nobody, and then by the end, it's like, oh yes, we're now gonna make you leader of this whole region. It's like, all right, class. Why not?
It's like if you done the whole Dragonborn thing and you've soaked in all the benefits of it, you can kind of become a whole new person in this whole other story, this whole other quest. Is that one your favorite one then, Eric, of the side quest, Dragonborn?
That would be, because I like how I love Norse mythology. I also love Lovecraft, like Cthulhu mythos. So yeah, that would be one of them. It's just really, really cool because it feels kind of alien, but also really fits into the world, and you're delving into a very different type of Daedric Lord, because most Daedric you're used to other demons and they're spread diseases and stuff, and then this one is really different. Yeah. So that was really cool.
And it takes you to a whole other location, so you got a whole new place to explore. Yeah. For that quest, it's like a whole other game. Like this game does side quests so good. Like I geek out over the. I always it kind of ruins other side quests for me, like in other games, because if they're not held up to the quality that I think Skyrim sets in terms of having great scope and being enough of a smaller story within itself, then I'm like, not too bad with it. Like I hate fetch quests. Yeah. And Skyrim might have a couple of those in there somewhere,
it does, yeah.
But the main side quests are all big full story arcs. Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite one, Adam?
I think I mentioned it in the episode where we discussed Skyrim. The one where you get drunk.
Oh yeah,
that one.
that's kind of funny.
And you have to try and backtrack through. I think that was the thing that you were talking about, Chris. That you never did it before.
I've never done that.
So you're trying to backtrack and figure out what the hell you did. And like it turns out you stole a goat and stuff, like things like that. I thought that was pretty good.
It's a good one, all right. And it doesn't
it's quite a short one as well.
Or
no, that one's nothing to do with Daedric God.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you're dealing with Sanguine, I think, the Daedric prince of
like, so then you end up going to his
and stuff. Yeah.
Is it?
No, it's Shogorath. Not Sanguine.
Yeah, because Sanguine, I think, is the one where you're walking through
I don't know.
In Solitude, isn't it? You go down a haunted hallway, and then all of a sudden you're in another realm, and you're at it's almost like the Mad Hatter style dinner party. Isn't that Sanguine? Maybe I've got the names mixed up.
Maybe, I don't know. Shogorath. No, yeah, Shogorath is the one that deals. No, wait a minute. Sanguine is the one that you get drunk with, and Shogorath is the one you're thinking of, where he's like, you got the kid, and you gotta get you're in some weird land, and it's some Mad Hatter tea party type thing.
Yeah, and you get
it's like an old
Wabbajack.
Like an old man sitting there as well.
Don't you get the Wabbajack off him?
Yeah, you get the Wabbajack. Yeah, that's Shogorath because he's the prince of.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I do get all the Daedric princes mixed up.
I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I think I love vast majority of the side quests, and there's always like parts of them that you don't enjoy, but I think overall as an arc, they're all really good. But one that always
Thieves Guild is probably one of the longest ones.
Yeah, and I was about to. I had that one in my mind, and I was going, maybe that's my favorite one because it starts off with something so small and just like snowballs into something so big. But I think the College of Winterhold is my favorite one because I really I was expecting nothing of it, and it just turns into this crazy adventure,
like an epic Harry Potter.
Like there's this college of magic, and then there's like an evil wizard, and they find this device deep underground that actually has like very dangerous connotations for the world. I just think it's a really cool quest that I was expecting nothing from. That's the other thing, like they all start so small that you have no idea where it's going to go, and then most of them turn into something huge, which is another world-ending thing. So I was like, the main quest has a world-ending thing, but the side quests also have these like world-ending things. Does anyone prefer the main quest?
That I know of, or just out of us?
Out of us, obviously. You can't speak on behalf of the world. No one does.
No.
This court is adjourned.
The main quest, I think, it like I said, when it gets to Blackreach, I'm just like, man, like that's moments where I just want to go off and do side quests.
Right. Yeah.
And going to, at the end, what's the place? Sovngarde. That's not as epic as I thought it was going to be.
I think it's really epic.
I think it's pretty epic. I think it's
pretty. Like it's good concept stuff like that, but I just think how it was actually, like you just fly there and it's like, okay, cool. Like I don't know. I just
fly on the back of a dragon.
Yeah, I know, but
it's pretty rad.
I think you're just straight wrong here.
I just think in comparison to like the battle for Winterhold and all that kind of stuff, like that stuff to me it has just much more epic scale to it.
Okay.
I just think that final fight with Alduin could be a lot better. Like in other like the DLC, like the Dragonborn one, for example, I just think there's it's weird that some side quests can have much more epic finales than the one with Alduin.
Yeah. I think overall I probably prefer some of the side quests to the main quest, but that's not to say anything bad about the main quest. I still think it's a really good quest. I actually really enjoy it. And yeah, I actually think Sovngarde is epic, and getting there is epic. I don't know what you're talking about, man. You fly on the back of a dragon. Are you kidding me? Come on. What the fuck do you want?
I think it's really cool when you go into the Hall of Heroes. I can't remember what they call it.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's like everyone you would have encountered throughout the game, if you did all the side quests and everything, are there.
Are they?
So, yeah, like, COD like Whitemane in the Companions. So if you did that, and obviously he, spoiler alert, dies at the end. He's there at that hall. And then if you, let's say, killed Ulfric because you joined the Companions, Ulfric is there. So all these Nord characters who you would have met and died all end up there at the end of the game. And then also, depending on who you join, you have different dialogue options to talk to the gatekeeper or bridgekeeper, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And depending on what you say, it depends on his reaction to you as well.
Awesome.
And the music is class.
The music is class. Actually, on the topic of music, it's kind of hard to say, but is there do you have like a favorite piece of music from like a certain place you go into, or
is there one though?
Dragon Reach. You go in there and you have that kind of epic. I can't hum it or in any way mimic it. So, but you know what I'm talking about. When you go in there and you have this kind of like,
certainly look it up.
There's like a sense of importance to this place, and it's like I have entered the hall of the Golden Keep of Rohan or something right now. Like it's just
and the way it's like a hymn nearly, and the way it kind of there's almost a reverb or an echo. It gives sense of volume to that hall, which actually doesn't. You don't realize how big that hall is until you play it in VR.
Right, yeah.
Right? When you play that game in VR, like the sense of scale and things, like most of the game feels kind of normal, but when you enter that hall and you look up, you're like, Jesus, this is huge. Which makes sense because it's it's how they capture dragons, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it needs to be big.
Well, it's the back of the area was for capturing dragons.
But because it's all almost like the same height kind of thing, it kind of makes sense as to why the hall is actually so high, the ceiling.
I love that building's name has lore and a story behind it.
Yeah,
that's class.
And that's like nearly everything does. Adam, do you have a favorite piece of music from the game?
See, I can't there are certain places that when you enter them, there's like a song that appears like Dragon Reach or where the grey beards are. But apart from that, I think the music just kind of self-generating, isn't it? I don't think it actually has specific tunes for specific places.
It's weird because I find it very hard to pick out specific tracks, say, from the soundtrack, and yet I would say this game has a phenomenal soundtrack.
Yeah,
I think it has a very, I think it transports you. Like I think it really fits the world that you're in.
It's very difficult. Yeah, you can't exactly pinpoint one because there's not one where you can kind of go like you can say, oh, the battle tune. We know what the battle tune sounds like in it, right? But there's one in particular. There is a tune that plays throughout. It's kind of as you're exploring.
Yeah.
But I have no way of identifying it apart.
Is it like the really gentle kind of almost sounds like a piano kind of one or something? And sometimes it plays like
there's a piano to
it. No, I don't think there's a piano. I think I'm thinking the same one, Adam. I think it's my favorite piece as well, where it's like, I would actually call it. I think it plays the most. Like when you load it up, I think you'll hear it. So apart from sort of the main big choral battle theme that people would associate as the main theme of Skyrim, I actually think this is the main theme tune from Skyrim. I think it's like Skyrim's theme. It's sort of like it'd be the equivalent of like a world map music in one of the Final Fantasy games. I don't like comparisons, but there we go. But it's a really soothing kind of meditative, but very like cultural piece of music. God, I wish I knew.
I think the thing I love about the Skyrim soundtrack as a whole is the low ends. Like, so there's nice kind of melodies throughout, but it's the low end that gives it like this like oomph to it, like that has like it's almost like the breathing of a dragon kind of a thing going on, and it's the low end that really like adds like weight to the kind of lighter melody that plays throughout. It's so good. Like just walking around, like you're doing the most mundane tasks, such as just standing on the top of a mountain and observing, and that music is just like it sells it. You know, I'd love to see what's it like. I've never done it before. I've never turned the music off and walk around Skyrim. Like, is it like? I imagine
it's like real life, man.
Really shit then.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine it's pretty quiet. But I think we're thinking of the same piece of music, and I think it's definitely my favorite in the game as well. But I love another aspect of the game that I just love is within all of the lore and all the story going on, like even the stuff about like using your voice as your power and all these things, it just sounds like something out of an old myth. Everything in it, like the power of talking or the power of singing, even like all this kind of stuff, like in a world of in this kind of landscape, poetry has like a power and stuff, you know, like very much like old mythology, and particularly like Norse mythology. This stuff sounds like something out of an old book, even though they've made it up, and obviously it's inspired by these kind of old Beowulf legends and stuff, but you hear it and it doesn't sound ridiculous, even though it kind of should. it kind of should sound stupid. Like it's okay. So you have a wonderful shout. You should shout at the dragons, and it'll kill them. It's like that sounds ridiculous. But within the world, it just
And I
worked.
think the game landed at the right time as well. Like I feel like the likes of Morrowind and Oblivion are kind of over ambitious for the hardware that they were launched on. Like,
Right.
you know, there's very like Morrowind has kind of vast jungles and stuff like that, and Oblivion then has like these nice plains again with trees and stuff like that. But it's kind of hard to make those worlds feel like, you know, the density of trees or like the beauty of those plains and stuff like that with the hardware limitations. But Skyrim's supposed to look like there's lovely areas in Skyrim, but Skyrim in general is supposed to look coarse and muddy and rough. So the hardware, because it couldn't really render really nice visuals, really suits that environment.
Yeah.
So it was the
Very
perfect
much
time
so.
to do it. Like, and I think they could possibly waste their resources trying to do that like later on better hardware. You know, I think they could almost remaster something like Oblivion or remake something like Oblivion on newer hardware, and it'll probably, you know, give new life to it and look great. But I think if you try to do that with Skyrim, it's probably not going to look much different. Like the textures will look way better, the lighting will be better, but it's still such a muddy looking game, and it's supposed to.
Not exactly anything you can't do with the mods anyway. Like, yeah, you can just mod it to look really
When
nice.
you see a lot of the mods out there which, you know, beautify Skyrim, they look fantastic, but they just remove what makes Skyrim. You know what I mean? Like it's not supposed to be a nice place.
No,
it's supposed to be ugly.
It's barren. It's horrible. Everyone's out to get you. And yet there's this beautiful serenity to being there when that particular piece of music plays that I can't think of the name of. But
and I suppose it's things like that, because there's like small patches, like the really nice looking places like Riverwood, and coming up that like walkway and you look down, you see Whiterun, right?
Yeah.
Like those areas are actually minor, right? Most of Skyrim is actually ugly snow, mountains, rocks, etc., right?
Yeah.
That one little stretch is like such a minor part of Skyrim. But it's that small little kind of, you know, this is what Skyrim could be, this beauty to it that makes you want to hold on to wanting to save this land from whatever tyranny comes to it.
Yeah.
Like,
I get very much whenever I play this game, and it's one of the reasons it is up there as one of my favorite games. People have heard before. Anyone who's listened to our podcast episodes before, it was number 2 in game of the decade. It was close. Like it's up there. It's definitely my favorite open world game. But I always get that Lord of the Rings feeling from it, which is one of my favorite franchises. And because you know, areas of it feel like Rohan, and there's like the Falmer feel a bit like the Goblins of Moria. It's like the closest you could get to playing, even though there's Lord of the Rings games out there, this is actually, I think, the closest you'll get to playing a Lord of the Rings game where you live in the world. Yeah. But the what you're saying about seeing like little small glimmers of beauty, I get that totally, because it really feels like when you're playing this game and what you're fighting for, like you see so much horrible shit, and it just feels like you get these moments where like you see these beautiful glimpses of what the whole place could be, and that's like the Shire.
Yeah.
And like the hobbits the whole way through see such horrible places, meet such horrible people. Even like Gondor, which is supposed to be a good kingdom, but the people are awful, and they're really not nice to each other. Like Denethor is an awful man, or Rohan is a place of poverty, and like people don't have much. Some people are living off scraps, and like the rest of the world of Middle Earth is, even though it's not as bad as Mordor, it's really not a nice world to live in. But the Shire is so beautiful and set up so lovely. And at the end of that quest, Sam mentions the things that, like, you know, when they're in Mordor and like they're on the side of the volcano and the ash is falling and everything is falling apart. And Sam mentions to Frodo the things that they're fighting for, which is like green grass and strawberries and dancing, the little things. And like that's the feeling I get when I'm playing Skyrim and going on these big quests, is like, because I remember when I first went to the Whiterun and I was like, this is just beautiful and the music is just serenity. That when I'm doing a quest and I'm fighting Alduin or something, I'm like, that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for that little river and that little piece of grass in this harsh, coarse world. Yeah. Sorry, I went off on one. What do you like about it, Eric? But does anyone else get that kind of Middle Earth's Lord of the Rings comparison?
Absolutely, yeah. But I think that's on purpose, definitely.
Oh, they have to be inspired by it, right?
Yeah.
They're definitely Tolkien inspired.
Well, nowadays, like, you take any fantasy, what fantasy isn't really inspired by Tolkien?
Right, it has to have some.
And Tolkien was inspired, obviously, by the old Norse myths.
Yeah.
And Celtic myths.
So it's full circle. But I suppose as well, the element of even the dragons having a language and it being carved on walls and stuff even just reminded me of like the Dwarven writing in like Moria. And,
yeah.
I think that's what's really cool about it, is that when the developers were like coming up with all that shit, like the design team, they were like, well, what does the language look like? And they were obviously looking at the likes of ancient Sumerian and stuff like that. There's obviously a similarity there. But they were thinking about like, well, how would the dragons write it? It was like, well, they have like on their thumb essentially is like a claw, so they would like carve it into the rock. So therefore it has to be like they can't have any kind of marks in their language that would be impossible to do with like their claw. So the whole thing was structured around that. Like, and I just love that. It's that kind of thing when we talk about like the similarities with the Lord of the Rings. The things with Lord of the Rings is that makes it the Lord of the Rings is how believable it all is. Like, it's quite grounded. It's like, okay, there's a reason for these types of things. You know, it's not just there for the sake of, oh, well, it kind of looks cool. So this has the same treatment.
Absolutely. Yeah, Skyrim is a virtual place that they created that you can go to.
Mm-hmm. And
it has all the things that a place should have, which is like a geography, a history, a culture. Man, it has it all. The only other thing that it adds,
sweet rolls,
apart from sweet rolls, the only other thing that it adds that you won't get from another real place is obviously a fantasy adventure and music. When you walk around outside, you won't hear music, but in Skyrim you will. What a place. Eric, apart from it having like the obvious Tolkien influences, was there any other influences you drew from it, or
influences that I drew from it, or that I thought it drew from, or
sorry, that you thought it drew from? Yeah.
Get
your questions right, Chris. Yeah, fucking
God damn it.
Interrogate me right, will you?
Well, I think used to kind of covered most of the bases of like that they would have taken most of their influences from Norse mythology, from Tolkien, from obviously the previous games and everything. They would have obviously always had to look back to that to make sure that they didn't fuck up anything, like they didn't get anything wrong, because
keep their lore consistent,
which is always important. But one thing that I really liked about it was the freedom of your character on how you could play.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because obviously, like, playing a lot of different RPGs, which could do open world or open maps, but you choose is always like a class system, and then with that class system, you can only use a particular type of weapons or particular types of armor, and sometimes that can get really annoying.
Yeah.
So it's just great that it's like at any moment it's like, oh well, I need to use my bow. You can use your bow. Yeah, you can use your bow and arrow. And then the next minute you take out a great sword, or you might decide to dual wield with a battle axe and you have fire in the other hand. Because I know, Adam, you often play like that. You often play as like a battle mage kind of person. You use like a one-handed weapon, then you had magic in the other. Chris, you use the two-handed weapon always. To just...
Yeah. If you can give me a fucking buster sword, I want to swing around. But you're right.
I often love to, like, if I got a mission to deal with like bandits in a cave, it's like, oh well, I'll sneak in and I'll use the bow and start sniping some of them out and be all stealthy while I'm wearing some big Daedric armor, because I'm not restricted in that way. Like, I don't have to, if I'm being stealthy, I don't have to use light armor. I can use heavy armor. If I'm being a tank. I don't have to use heavy armor. I can use light armor, and just that freedom, I think, is really nice that you can keep switching in and out at any point. Like, and obviously Oblivion did the same as well. You were able to do that, but I think Skyrim kind of nailed it more on the head with how to actually control the character.
I think you made a very good point there, actually, because if you are restricted in a game where whatever class you choose at the beginning is what you're stuck with for the rest of the game, in this, if you try out a certain skill tree or a certain class, and you find I'm not really enjoying that, you can totally switch up your gameplay style, and how you want to approach it, or you can master one and then go, now I want to master another one. The freedom this game gives the player is unparalleled. It's unbelievable.
I love the skill when you actually do go to the skill tree. You go to the constellation and everything is made out of the stars. It was like, that is class. And I love that
it's just unreal.
Everything in it is like, because I know in Oblivion you had far more skills to master. So that's why a lot of people preferred Oblivion to Skyrim, was because it is way more customizable in that aspect. Like, you can be more proficient with athletics or acrobatics. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, I'm not going to be doing backflips and front flips in this world because there's no controls for that. So I don't really understand why I need to be proficient in acrobatics. But at least with Skyrim, all the perks that you can become proficient in are actually something you can do. Like alchemy, create potions, or enchanting your weapons and armor, or making new armor and weapons with your smithing skills and stuff. Everything was like made sense. It wasn't just there for the sake of it.
And actually, because you brought up the gameplay, we've talked a lot about the lore, the world, the music, the characters, the side quests, plot, all that stuff. We've talked loads. We've said a lot, really, to tell you the truth. The word count is huge. But since you've brought up gameplay, and I know we have probably talked about it before, but since this is a dedicated episode, we should definitely get into this again. How do you guys find the overall gameplay of the game?
I just said it.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, yeah, you guys means Adam and me. I'm talking to myself. You know what? Goodbye. Okay, Adam, you specifically, how do you find the gameplay of the game?
Definitely a improvement over Oblivion. Like being able to assign magic to one hand and sword to the other was a fucking game changer. Right, really, really helped. Or if you wanted to go full mage, you could have different magic in each hand. That's really cool. And like being able to easily swap between them is nice. But the gameplay isn't the best. Like, it really isn't. There's definitely a lot it can improve on in the next one. Although they have to be quite cautious because it could end up kind of removing what makes it's special about the Elder Scrolls, but
there's a balancing act.
Yeah. But they definitely improved the overall animations, and sprinting. God, what like not being able to sprint in Oblivion.
You never realize how much you want to do something until it's not there. It's kind of like if you play a game that doesn't have a jump button, suddenly you miss it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like things like that.
So there's definitely huge improvements, but then there's things like, I think the actual genuine like motion and stuff like that is fine. I think what they could improve on in the next one is the enemies animations. Like if I hit someone in the head, let's say, then that's where it should hurt them. You know what I mean? Like the animations are very kind of like, I just hit you, therefore you will just fall over in any kind of way. You know, even if I did a backswing, it's not necessarily like they're going to fall in the direction that I hit them. They're going to go maybe in the opposite direction and stuff like that. Kill cams as well could be improved. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you play this game for gameplay. It's not like an incredible.
I think depending on the player you are, you do and you don't. And I don't think the gameplay is just the combat you see.
Yeah, sure.
But
I think a lot of it does come down to just controlling your guy. Like, I mean,
if
it can get kind of frustrating at times. Like you're stuck on something, you can't even see why you're stuck on something.
Yeah.
things like that.
There's
and then
right. There's
glitches
definitely
galore.
yeah. There's glitches. There's clunky elements to this game, absolutely. And I cannot wait. Not only because I love this game, I cannot wait for the next one because I just think the gameplay will have advanced even further. Like I thought this was like so advanced in comparison to Oblivion in terms of how the combat was handled. Obviously, there's still like you're right. There is little clunky animations and stuff. But even just having and some of those like final kills or those like kill cams, like some of them look bad, but some of them actually look really good. And and even just putting that in there was a nice cinematic little feature that when they do it in the next one, I can't wait to see how much they've amped up both the graphics and the physics of the combat. But I suppose it's just just the range that this game gives you in terms of gameplay. So like, yes, there's the combat, and within that you can choose all the different ways you want to fight, whether it's magic or swords or bow and arrow or whatever. But then there's like pickpocketing people, and there's lockpicking things, and there's going into first person or going into third person, and there's riding horses, and even though that stuff's clunky, just the amount of stuff.
Yeah, you can do a lot in it, and that's definitely something that absolutely needs to be improved. The next one is stealth, because stealth it doesn't work well. Like you.
But would the game be as funny without how it's done? Because like you get there and someone
funny,
goes,
but like I mean,
I see you.
I would love if there was an actual like if you're going into stealth mode, if there's an actual cover system.
Yeah,
like actually hugging a wall and stuff like that.
Yeah, or hugging a tree or
hugging a horse.
Hugging yourself. Hugging Lydia. I wish you could hug Lydia before I had
just
to
give her a hug.
Lydia, why? No, but you're right. Like a cover system would be very cool. I think there's a lot of games that have come out since with other gameplay advancements that I'm sure the Elder Scrolls will be picking up on. And
yeah, because stealth is the one thing in that game where I'm just like, I try it and then it's just not working for me. So I'm just like, screw this, and I just butcher everyone instead. Like, because it's just easier.
You just have to be like Eric, man. You got to get good, you know. You gotta
just get good.
Yeah.
If you increase your sneak ability, you can roll. Yeah, I mean, from spotting, when they're looking through the doorway, you just roll.
Like in the VR one, I have gone way more stealth, like because my archery skills have really increased. And I think if you're going to sneak and stuff, archery is the way to go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time. I suppose in general, then, when it comes to game, actually, there's a question that I was thinking about earlier on. We did this before. I think Adam, you posed the question to the group, and it was, what's your least favorite enemy in the game to fight? And I think at the time yours was the Falmer. I'm pretty sure I said the Frost Troll, and Eric, there was some kind of fish or something that you never get to meet, and that bothered you.
Yeah, the slaughterfish.
Slaughterfish, that's what it was. Yeah. But we never went on a positive opposite to that. What's your favorite enemy in the game? And this could be from like fight. There's not like different tactics to fighting different enemies a whole lot, apart from using magic on some or whatever. But just maybe the design of them that you like, or there's a certain story element in which they take place that you like, or.
For me, it has to be the Draugr.
Okay. Yeah. Standard.
The idea of them bursting out of the crypts and everything. Like just one mission for the companions. You got to go get a shard of Igor's axe Wuthrad. And I go in and I know, there's a shit ton of coffins here. Yes. They're all going to burst open. And it's so satisfying when you have all these Draugr coming at you and you're just like, because it feels like that moment in Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, when all the goblins burst into the tomb of
Yeah. But also just like, it's so cool to have these,
and the designs are great.
They're designed well, but like these Nordic like zombies.
Yeah.
That have come back from the grave because they worship the dragons of old, like, and so they've come back to serve their previous masters. They don't come out of the dark much, so there's an element where I feel the threat of the Draugr isn't felt enough, because the idea of maybe Draugr attacking towns could have been a very scary thing, but at the same time, I love the Draugr. I love the story element that they bring to it.
Pretty sure they're also like their designs are procedurally generated, so that like you're never really, well, you are obviously always gonna, because there's only so many designs, but like because when you die, like some parts are still growing and stuff, like hair, I think still grows. So like some women might have like full beards on them and stuff like that.
All right, okay.
So that all the design of the Draugr are somewhat unique to it.
I never noticed that actually. It's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Class. Great to keep shape.
It's a great way to keep shape. And actually, I think I usually pick up pretty early a Draugr Greatsword. That's one of the 200 broadswords. I use that for like most of the game. There's very few swords that have like a stronger like attack damage than that. That thing whoops ass. Like it makes you slow, but you can fucking whoop dragons with it. Adam, have you a favorite enemy in the game?
I think maybe either the Forsworn as just like a foot soldier.
Yeah.
Or the like vampires I thought were pretty cool. Like the main vampire, like the one that it pretty much just looks like Marcus from Underworld.
Yeah, it is that kind of thing.
Essentially that. Like I just love what they did
cool
with
design.
the wings and stuff like that, and just how he looks, and it's one of the cooler designs for a vampire, especially considering like we've gone through this kind of weird kind of like time of vampires being really attractive people that you'd want to like
semi-romantic kind of.
Yeah, it's just like, are you serious? Like these are supposed to be like they're demons essentially. Like they're horrible
monsters. Yeah.
They're always depicted as like they're the worst creatures in every mythology that has a type of vampire like creature. They're the worst thing to come across. Like
yeah. So the vampires, I think in Skyrim, like they look scary. They are tough as well.
Oh, big time! Yeah.
I got infected by one of them by just like I don't know how. It's just while I was fighting them, they infected me, which was annoying.
Because they have like a spell
to try and find the cure is pretty cool as well. Like just everything about the vampires I think is neat.
Yeah. I think like both of those are awesome. And I love the Draugr as well, but another one that sticks out to me I think is the Hagraven.
Yeah,
it's just
creepy.
They're creepy out and
they're annoying, but yeah, they're creepy.
Awesome. Cool design.
Yeah, like I don't like fighting them. That's purely on a design aesthetic because I think they're essentially like witches, and I suppose again, much like the vampire, in more recent times, witches have had a certain design or appeal in people's minds, I think. But in older stories, witches had a lot more different forms and could often be a lot more monstrous and often did have animal features in older myths and stuff. So going back to that, I just think the Hagravens are really creepy and really horrible, and it gives you...
Yeah, they always kind of remind me of, like, you know, the queen in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the way she becomes this witch kind of character. Like she...
Yeah.
They kind of look like that. Like they kind of look like if someone did like a fan fiction style, like alternative design for that kind of character. That's what they kind of look like.
Yeah, they're just disgusting. And then they play into a lot of really cool little side quests where they are responsible for like horrible curses and stuff. Like there's even one in the companions where I think they are the ones that gave them the werewolf curse or something.
Sure.
Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I think they did.
The curse is definitely. I think it's 3 Hagravens were serving a Daedric prince.
That's right.
And they got the curse from that prince, and then gave it to
So it's just a really cool. Like not only are they an enemy you can encounter, but they do play into some of the story aspects of the game. So I think they're.
And there's one as well that I can't remember what quest it is, but there's one that you end up helping. And
see, now there's another thing I've never done.
Yeah, I don't think I've done that one either.
They're like, and it's like you let her go, and then she helps you get through this kind of dungeon essentially. Like she's in a prison cell or something like that. Yeah. And then you get to this end thing, and then like I think it's something like she gets to keep something and you get something else. I can't remember, but then she's just like walking around. Like the mission's over, and she's just walking around near you, and like. I've never been on such edge when playing Skyrim because I was just like, okay, at any moment she's gonna attack me. I just know it.
Right. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
never does. And then I leave,
Wow.
and I come back in. She's still there. It's just like, are you like you're a
This is
friendly Hagraven? This
weird.
is weird.
And that's kind of like it always puts me on edge in the Dark Brotherhood Slayer, the little girl with the pet giant spider.
Oh yeah.
And you could always just
yeah.
hear it walking around, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, what are you
I swear that
what are
spider's
you
gonna kill you.
doing? Spiders look just like that. What are you doing? Fucking kill that thing. Spiders and why I hate them. Welcome to part 2.
That's actually not the only friendly Hagraven that you come across. Because in that mission with Seguin, where you get drunk and everything, you end up, if you play it the way it's supposed to be played, you end up finding that you got married to someone. And when you go find out who you got married to, it's a Hagraven.
God.
Just to make it really weirder. I think
weird.
you paid your way to finish that, didn't you? So if you pay someone a certain amount of money at them, I think it's like they'll just tell you what happened. You can just get straight to the end. No. If you pay in real life, I'll tell you
what.
Find
like some dodgy guy somewhere and pay him money. He'll tell you what happened to Skyrim. What?
I wonder if it's the same quest then, the one I'm thinking of.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Alright. I haven't done that one. So there's so much to do in this game. It's so expansive.
A lot of people are actually, really, really sick of Skyrim, just because of how often it's re-released. Are you sick of it? Like, do you get sick of seeing it being re-released?
Re-released a lot? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think it's been re-released enough.
It should be on more. It needs to be on iOS.
For me, I see no problem with re-releasing a game, no matter what the game is. I see no issue with re-releasing a game. You have a choice whether to buy something or not. They're going to spend money re-releasing it. They're going to spend money advertising it. It'll literally not hurt you at all. You'll see it. Why would you get angry seeing something someone else made? Like, why would that even bother you? So, like for example, like there's a lot of crappy movies that get made. I don't get mad when I see a trailer. I just go, I probably won't go watch that. So for me, games is that, like, you can re-release Skyrim on every platform you want. You can re-release the Phantom Pain on as many platforms as you want. I don't care. You have a choice whether you want to play it or not. So, no.
See, I sympathize to some degree with people who get, and no, especially with the whole crappy movies thing, Chris.
I know you do. It bothers you. I don't care.
Because it's like, well, that's time, money, resources spent that could have been spent on something that could have been more original. But
yeah,
there's it's different when it comes to, I mean, just to explain to people like why you see Skyrim on everything, right?
Right.
Partially, yeah, we could milk this thing for money. There's that obvious motivation.
There is, yeah.
But the actual reason you see it on, okay, so it was brought to PS4, Xbox One, then to PSVR, then to Switch. The reason for that is because Bethesda have a lot of future projects down the line, and as they're working, new hardware gets released.
Yeah.
And you don't want to kind of like take a stopper to like kind of say, well, okay, so which hardware are we going to work with? Like, you want to keep going, you want to understand, you want to work on the thing you're working on while also learning the hardware that's being released as you're moving. So with Skyrim, they already have something that's huge and glitchy, and it's got unpredictable things.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect thing to use to test, well, what can we do with the hardware that's being released? And they straight up said that. They were like, well, why release the VR? I was like, well, we were testing VR. And the thing that we tested was Skyrim, because it does have all these complexities to it. And then we got it to work. We ended up finding it really fun as we were testing it, and figured, if we're having so much fun, then maybe the rest of the world will, so we'll release it.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I have no issue with it. I'd have an issue with it if, I don't know, you were being forced to buy it. Then I'd have an issue with it.
If like
different.
the PS, I think I might get a little bit like kind of all right. This is a bit much if the PS5 and
Has a
Series
Skyrim?
X release and they re-release Skyrim on it, then it's like, come on now.
Full price.
At full
Yeah,
price.
because at this
you'd be
point, it's like
"Oh, no,
they've
guys."
released a teaser trailer for their next 2 games. So
Yeah.
at this point, it's like for the next consoles, we would like to have those next
Oh,
2 games.
it's gotta be that next, right?
But
And
the
I can't
current
wait for
current
next
releases
Elder
I
Scrolls.
think are totally fine because it's like the PS3 version. Although I never had an issue with it, is widely known as just a broken game that should never have been released, right?
Okay.
That's-
Never had a problem.
I never had a problem with it either, but
I
most
have
of the
heard people say
reviews
that, yeah.
for Skyrim on the PS3, like it was always fine on the 360, but for PS3,
Of
and
course it was.
well, yeah, because they didn't actually bother utilizing the PS3's hardware. So, but it was broken mess. So to get it re-released on PS4, it's like, well, okay, finally, there's a version that works really, really well on PlayStation. Grant, so there's no problem with that. Then to have it re-released in VR, no problem with that. It's a wholly
You
it's
can
completely
experience it
different,
totally different.
totally different experience.
Yeah.
And then to have it re-released on the Switch, it's like brilliant. Skyrim on the fucking go. Well,
you see,
each
for me, right?
version of it is like a different situation, like a different way you can play it.
Exactly.
You know, even the one on the Switch, you can do it through motion controls. You can even get the Master Sword in it. Like, I mean, it's a different gameplay experience.
The other thing is like re-releasing a game on another console. For me, is not a bad thing, right? Because, like, I don't have a Switch, right? But someone who has a Switch might not have a PlayStation, and now they can experience a game that I would absolutely recommend people play. And yet, you know, if they already have a Switch and they're like, do I really want to buy a whole other console just for that game? Now, obviously, there's plenty of other games you could play, but to have the options to play these games. So, for example, we were talking about Metal Gear Solid in the last episode. We were saying people should absolutely play this game. Actually, how are you going to play it? And we talked about like the fact that it's not all that widely available.
Mhm.
I would have no issue if they came out and re-released Metal Gear Solid on every console.
Yeah.
That wouldn't me be going, that's a bit money grabby. I would go, fantastic, that's great. I hope everyone gets to play Metal Gear Solid. So for me, re-releasing a game is not an issue. It just gives options.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it, Eric? Because yeah, I know in fairness, and a lot of people don't like it, and they do get annoyed about it.
That's great, like it's class. I'm pretty sure I just said that. I'm pretty sure at the start of this I said that like they're not releasing it enough. Like, you know, bring it on the Amazon.
Put it on my phone. Put it
should
on
be
my
on should be on a NES.
Yeah. Put
I'm
it
still
on
waiting. Where's that Skyrim for
on-
Amazon Alexa?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I picked up the GameCube the other day, and Skyrim's not on it. What the fuck?
What's going on there?
What's going
Why
on
is
there?
it? Why is it when I pull up my curtains, I don't see Skyrim? You know, I just see sounds. What's that like? Why is
What's
Skyrim
that,
not in
Eric?
real life?
You're not in a house in Skyrim.
Shut up, right?
Before we finish up, Eric, I have to
Yes.
ask: have you got a favorite part
Fuck's sake.
in Skyrim? Well, it could be an aspect of the game. It doesn't necessarily have to be a moment, because again, this isn't like a linear story game. This
Yeah.
is there's multiple ways to play it. So it could be an aspect of the game or a whole area of the game. But have you got a favorite thing in Skyrim?
Sure, yeah. Of course, everyone's got a favorite part in every game they do. You know what I mean?
I just don't want to tell you.
I just don't want to. I just can't
I
pinpoint.
just don't want
it.
to put it to words.
So good. Favorite aspect would have to be all of it. No, I think smithing. I really love having.
Of all the things you could have said, that was not. I never expected that. Wow. I mean,
Although-
cool.
At the moment, smithing is really annoying me because I can't. I'm trying to get it to
Hold on a second.
100.
Whoa, stop right there before you go any further. We've
Okay.
been talking about this game for like an hour and a half now, right? You have
Right.
not mentioned smithing once.
Yes, I have. I did. I did mention smithing.
Not today, you haven't.
Yes,
Not-
I have.
When did you mention it? Just there a minute ago.
I said alchemy. All right. I said alchemy to make your own potions, enchanting for enchanting your weapons and armor, and then you get to make your own weapons and armor. That was smithing. I was talking about smithing there.
I'm sorry. I should have gone back and like picked up the breadcrumbs and figured.
Yeah, you should have, man. Fuck's sake. I left it all there. You could have made a whole loaf
to my face all along. Okay, so
like a whole dinner of what I give.
Is smithing actually your favorite aspect of the entire game?
I really, because it's not the whole thing. It's getting really annoying at the moment because I can't get it to 100%. All right, I can't get that dragon armor and weapons. That'd be nice. But I really do enjoy that kind of, because it gives that aspect of reality, I suppose. You know, that you can take a break from the adventuring, and then you can just go like, oh, I'm just gonna improve my sword or my armor. I'm gonna make a jewelry if I want. Not that I'm going to, but I could if I wanted to. You know, and that like as you progress, you unlock all these new weapons and armor and other things to make, and that it's another aspect of progression, not just through doing up your health or your magic or stamina or getting all those different perks. That's another thing, is getting new equipment. So,
man, I never saw that coming. But from the man who loves the Infinity Blade, it makes sense. He likes to smith. So there you have it. Those are our thoughts on Skyrim, Erik's favorite game
ever
for smithing. No, I mean, look, everything we've said about it, all the lore, all the freedom, all the gameplay, all the creativity, the music, everything. I suppose it's the full package as to why we enjoyed this game and always keep coming back to it, and that's why they keep re-releasing it. If we stop playing it, maybe they'll stop releasing it. So if it angers you that much. No, and if you haven't played Skyrim, absolutely recommend it. Even this isn't like, if you're not into storylines and stuff, there's a lot you can do in this game. There's definitely a lot of freedom to just play and have fun, or you can get yourself lost in all the lore. So you have a lot of options playing this game.
That's 3 episodes now.
3 episodes we've talked in length about Skyrim. So we'll take a break from Skyrim for a while, but you should definitely go there yourself if you haven't been there. It's a great place to go. And in our next episode, we are finally going to get the chance. It's been out long enough now, and I think enough people have played it that we can finally do a full-length discussion on it. We are going to be discussing the Final Fantasy VII remake. So we normally don't say what the next episode is going to be. Like back in the day,
this is the first time we're going to talk about a game that hasn't been out for fucking years.
Yeah, that's very current and very recent. That's true, actually. Yeah. So like we haven't had to worry about, like in all the earlier episodes, we haven't had to worry too much about spoilers because they've all been around so long that people generally have played them or have looked up them on YouTube or whatever. So yeah, more often now we're going to have to say things like spoilers. But yeah, we will be discussing that game in great length in our next episode. But until then, thank you for checking in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ha ha.